Hello, hello, most beautiful stars. Hello, hello. This is Courtney with Stars of the Morning Light. It is actually Thursday, October 10th. Normally, Edgar Cayce Life Skill Studies is on Wednesday. Um, Thank you for being patient. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for allowing October to flow as the energy needs to. I will try to say hello to those who come into the chat. This is definitely not my normal time. I see that Seeker of Truth, Shelly came in. Good to see you. Um, Beautiful people. I wrote originally that this was going to be about Edgar's bio. Um, it is not. We are going to be in actually the Edgar Cayce on Reincarnation, which we started last time, and it's the book that we are in now. And to tell you the truth, I ain't gonna beat around the bush at all. I'm exhausted. I am so exhausted, everyone. I have not been able to get quality sleep. And every time I get an opportunity to maybe cry because I need to cry, or get a nap, which because I need a nap, I am interrupted. So I am exhausted. And so we will probably go through a little bit and then I'm going to probably let you go. October, as you all know, there's a lot going on, and there still will be, even as we move through the month, because it's still early. There's a lot going on, and I have stated this before um, here at Stars of the Morning Light. There's different kind of empaths in the world, and I am not of the variety of a feeler empath that feels energy that is right next to me. I am not that. I am not that at all. If we were sitting together and I would be empathetic, I would be sympathetic, I would be with you, I'd be fully present, but 200 feet following distance with me at all times as far as taking on other people's energy, emotions, their stuff. I do not do that. What does, though, happen with me, lovely people? And I see Lori entered the chat. Good to see you, my dear. What does happen with me, though, is I very much am connected to the earth, extremely connected to the earth. I mean, stuff could be happening in Africa, stuff could be happening down under, stuff could be happening in Siberia, and my body reacts. I also, am I don't feel one-on-one, but I feel the collective. That's always fun. I say that very sarcastically. So right now I am overly, uh, absorbing the energy of the collective. Um, sometimes it's decent enough and I can just roll through, and right now it's not. I have been every night, probably not falling asleep until after midnight. And then for some reason, my body's waking me up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I can't get back to sleep. Often thinking about the mountains, the people, uh, the wildlife. This morning it was the wildlife. Or yesterday morning. The days are starting to get confusing here. Um, I wake up at 4 something in the morning thinking about the bears that were in the Appalachias and how are they handling things. So, and it's because I'm probably feeling them. I'm probably feeling all of it. So, do know I am tired, I'm exhausted, and there's a whole lot of shifting from all of my workload and everything, and preparation for a service project to collect donations for all that's going on in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee. Because of my location, it's there's a lot going on, folks. There's a lot going on. So, with that being said, normally this is on a Wednesday. My schedule got so battered around yesterday, and with being as exhausted with lack of sleep, lack of this, lack of all sorts of stuff, um, by the time I would have been able to do this yesterday, it would have been so incoherent. It would have been, I mean, I was so incoherent by last night. So I'm glad we're here together today. Like I said, I thought I was going to be doing their bio. I didn't even get a chance to read the bio because I am on the phone with a lot of people. I am networking. I am doing stuff. So I didn't even get a chance to look at the bio. And then when I got a chance to kind of look at it, I went, whoa, that's a much bigger topic to handle than doing reincarnation, at least for myself. So thank you for all for being here. You can join us again on Friday night at 8 p.m. for Esoteric Tea with Lucky and Courtney. That is here on this channel at 8 p.m. Lucky and I will be going live on his channel for a Halloween show and all sorts of great stuff on Friday the 25th over at Lucky Stone 888. When I get done going live here, I will put all this stuff in the description and get everything up and running. All right, beautiful people. So we started this book, Edgar Cayce, on reincarnation, because in a poll many, many moons ago, this is the one that you guys chose out of like 4 or 5 different books. This is the one that the majority on the poll wanted. Okay, cool. I understand. So we started that last time and we're still at the very beginning. We went through an example as to how past life readings would go with Casey. This time we're actually going to be talking about Casey's past lives a little bit. And before we jump into that, I wanted to talk to everybody because I'm going to put it out there again. There are aspects about past lives and soul contracts, okay, that I understand because of the work that I do with the Akashic and growing up knowing about past lives and soul contracts, and then definitely working with the Akashic, that I personally, it would take years for me to probably succeed at doing this. I would like to obtain a bunch of different case studies so that I can actually write and use these case studies as an example as to how this stuff really works. Because a lot of people, it's a very, there's a lot of clouds, there's a lot of theories, there's a lot of this, a lot of tradition around it or lack thereof, because in some faiths, some traditions, reincarnation was not even allowed up until 20 years ago, not even to even be uttered about, like that's not true. You got one shot, do it right type thing. And more people are growing into the idea of, well, maybe we have been here before because this place resonates with me, or I kind of have these memories that I'm not sure where they come from, but they do feel so rich, as in character and description and true and authentic to me. Like it's a full memory of people, places, and things that were definitely not a part of this life. There are aspects in place with reincarnation that I would like to be able to have case studies that I can use as examples. So, what this would look like is I sincerely, this is not so easy to get to begin this process. Very not so easy. I would need, let's say we have a household of like 3 or 4 people, like let's say four. I'm just going to use four. Okay. So let's say we have 2 parents and 2 grown kids who would be willing to have an Akashic reading solely based on past life regression stuff and or reincarnation stuff, I should say, and how those four are connected as far as contracts. Well, I can't just base it off of those four. So then I would need like a spider web in a way. I would need from like the parents a few of their attached contracts, from the kids who are adults, a few of their attached contracts. As in, like, let's say the mom. Well, if the mom can get her sister to be willing and her best friend for the past 30 years willing to do a reading. Okay, cool. Then the other parent would have to get, you know, one of their cousins or really close family members, or, maybe a child from another marriage, that kind of thing. They would have to get 2 from there. Then those kids would at least have to get 1 more attachment. So I technically would need, at least for 1 group of people, I would need probably at least 9 connections, at least a minimum of 9, that I'm willing to do a free reading, but it is only about past lives, where were you at, who were you connected to in this web, right? I'm not answering any other questions because this is free and this is for a case study. The reason this is not so easy to obtain, because it sounds cool to those listening here, right? It sounds really cool of like, oh, I want to know. I want to know if my husband and I were connected in a past life, or I'm sure we were. Where was it? How many times? What's going on here, right? Or I'm sure this friend and I, who have done 40 years together, helping each other out of all the madness, I'm sure we're connected in past lives, right? You might be able to get that person. You might be able to get your grown children. You might be able to get, you know, 1 or 2 other connections to get at least a total of, I need at least 4 in a family or 3 in a family, but then I need those offshoots of at least 9, okay? 2 for each person almost. So like 2, 4, 6, 8. I need at least 9. Maybe I can work with, 1 offshoot on a couple of them. Does that make sense? I need at least 9. Well, that's what the Akashic told me. In order to do this, I would need a family of 3 or 4 with either doubles or single offshoots that are also kind of connected, right? Not so easy. Not so easy. So, and I really probably need about 15, they said, which seems almost impossible in my opinion. The reason why is because, yeah, you and your partner, even you and your grown kid, you and your best friend, whomever, you and your parent, you might be all gun ho and totally, yeah, I'm going to do this. That does not mean that you can find that 9 to 15 other people that are needed to form an actual case study. And then on top of that, I don't that would just be 1 case study. All those 9 to 15 people, that would just be 1 case study of this group. I need like 6 groups to be able to truly use the documentation, all the readings, to clarify how this stuff works. How do soul contracts work? What is all this about reincarnation? All these little finite details that the reason I want to do it, because it sounds like a good time on my part, but also because usually when I have a reading for people, if I do an Akashic record reading for individuals and they start asking me about their soul contracts or their past lives or the partnerships they're in now, right? Of any sorts, especially moms with their kids. A lot of moms ask, we've gone through this before, haven't we? Especially if there's stuff going on with the kids, right? Um, Usually during all of those readings, I have to explain stuff. So I tend to be in repetition with every new reading or every reading I do that involves soul contracts and reincarnation. I'm repeating myself quite often as to how this actually works. What is a soul contract? How does it continue on with you? How does this happen? Where were you all located originally? See, there's an aspect to that um based on soul contracts, everyone. Oftentimes, we reincarnate in the same region or area of the world over and over again until many of those contracts kind of fizzle away or someone decides to make a really big jump. Like when America was first being populated, let's say, that was a massive jump as far as soul contracts. So a web of people connected that if one or two, maybe even three, made a massive jump to move to a new region, right? The Americas or Canada, where have you, over here, over the pond, that then within the next life and the following two lives, the spider web that they were originally attached to also then all of a sudden became born in this new land, right? Because contracts tend to stick together. So we have these little bubbles of contracts and these little bubbles of people who do come together over and over and not maybe not all of them all at once, but over and over again because it's kind of like, oh, once I'm connected with one of you, right? Well, then there's an offshoot to that person. So take Brad and I, right? My husband, Brad. Brad was actually born in Colorado. He spent the first 2 or 3 years in Colorado and then moved to Illinois, in Northern Illinois. In Northern Illinois, we lived about an hour apart from each other, still same county, but I'm on one far end by the lake and he's far closer to Chicago. His family had to make that move. So then Brad and I would come together, right? But Brad had two parents. I had two parents. So now are they associated with Brad in a contract? Am I associated with my mother-in-law in a contract? Was it there prior? Do you see what I'm trying to say? People tend to move and shift, and we've been doing it throughout history, right? We've been doing it for always, that we tend to reincarnate into the same region of land over and over again multiple times because contracts that are also based with the people around. So, this is the kind of information. This is also why, folks, when stuff happens with the land, like I said at the beginning, when things happen with the land, when things happen with humans at large, the collective, I take it in so differently because I see all of the webs. I know all of the webs. I literally, there is no separation because it is just this beautiful, magical webs of connection that just goes on forever. And we are actually all interconnected. I know I'm speaking through the interweb right now, this thing that helps us to connect, this tool of ours. But in all in all ways we are truly connected, and that's the case studies that I want to try to present so people can also understand not just reincarnation, not just soul contracts, how we truly are very, very connected, and why people do massive migrations to certain areas, why this happens, why that happens. It's a very, very, very huge topic, and I would give anything to be able to receive the case studies that are needed. So 9 to 15 people for at least for every single grouping, right? And I need at least 6 groups to be able to present how all this works. So, that was some food for thought as far as reincarnation, as in when things happen in this world and the world, not just here in the United States, the world, it really does affect everyone and everything, especially when there is a large migration, or especially when it something happens to a large population of people. Because what I am telling you is those people are usually already connected spiritually, that's soul contracts wise, regardless if they're relatives or not. Okay. I was actually just on the phone with someone the other day that asked, hey, was I here? More like Atlantis kind of conversation. And were you and I together, Courtney? And I was like, well, hey, it depends on which Atlantis you're talking about. But it happens that way. And that's how we also reconnect, regardless if it's on this interweb or not. There is no separation. So before we jump in, as we talk about Edgar, do know that when things happen, it affects so much. And of course, we can feel it, we see it, we know it. For me personally, I take it in vastly different ways. Not because you all are ignorant, it's just because I have eyes to see. That's it. I I've I have eyes to see. That's the only difference. And so it's my job to explain to you how connected we all truly are. Very much so. All right, folks. Oh, that's my job. That's my job. That's my job. Oh my goodness, my job. All right, so I'm going to just kind of read. This is a little bit about Edgar's past life. And we're still in chapter 1, but it's kind of a page break. So in the literary world, if y'all didn't know, as I used to be an English teacher, when you would in a chapter, look at me just wanting to teach some English. When you are in a chapter still, but then you have, see that line right there? The boy who remembered, that is referred to as a page break. We're entering into a new idea, but still same theme in a way. So it's still the same chapter. Woohoo! Look at me. I love me some English. I see that Kim came in. Good to see you, my dear. So, the boy who remembered. It would hardly be logical if the soul history Edgar Cayce transformed himself were not both imposing and unique. But by the same token, it is so complex that only a volume wholly devoted to its evolution could make it comprehensible to the orthodox layman. So Edgar, as he is about to say, and I'm going to probably paraphrase it because I don't, read the entire section. Think about who all Edgar is. I know we were going to do his bio today, but I decided to do the reincarnation book instead. We have been going through his bio though. Think about this unique, beautiful, wonderful, empathetic, wise, what we would refer to as an old soul, even as a child, this amazing being who has this great gift, but is still extremely compassionate and loyal and just love giving to the world. Consider what kind of past lives he might have had and how long has he been doing it. So the writer here even opens up with like, it would be so complex to go into all of the past lives of Edgar Cayce, there would have to be a whole volume dedicated to talking about just him, just his stories. And I want to tell you, most of you that are listening right now, same deal, folks. You have so many past lives that it would, the book would never end, right? Because you are a never ending story. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. Everybody in their beautiful story selves. So that's kind of what he starts talking about. His various lives took him from sublime heights to platitudes in which he was neither particularly exalted nor gifted with more than normal five senses. So he had multiple lives that, whoa, you were a what? You were, what are you made out of? Right? What are you made out of? Into just normal, everyday, walking around Joe on the street. For example, in the life he spent on the American continent immediately prior to his return as Edgar Cayce. So the life right before he became Edgar. He had not been a mere saint. He had been part of the British Army prior to the War of Independence. So this is way before Edgar was born. He was born in 1742 as a swashbuckling Cornshire stock. Okay, swashbuckling Cornish stock. Okay, so it's a Celtic race that the Brits look down on. So he's in Britain, but he's born of a poor Irishman. But he joined the British Army and he was known for his smuggling and shipwrecking. He was also known for, drunkenness and not being too fair with the ladies. Um, and if we can think about it, remember in Edgar's bio of, so this is the life right before, and I'm going to keep going through it because he eventually gets to America. Okay. In that life that was born in 1742. But remember in his biography of Edgar Cayce, Edgar like took a year to go be what he thought a man's man was. And he accidentally like shot himself. What an idiot. Um, but he was out there drinking, cheating, horsing around with a bunch of women. Within a year, Edgar went, "This is not right for me. This is not right." But he thought that that's what a man was supposed to be. He thought that that's what a man's man was at the turn of the century. So thank goodness he came back home and lived with his grandmother and was there for her while she was passing on, right? Because it was while she was passing that she really inspired him to accept who he was instead of trying to run away from who he was. We went through all of this in his bio many, many moons ago. So I know I'm jogging many people's memories right now. But think about that. In his prior life to being reincarnated into Edgar Cayce, he was this soldier who also did a bunch of stuff with smuggling and wrecking ships, who also did a whole lot of womanizing and chasing, cheating, stealing, drinking in that life, that it only took Edgar a year in the following life to go, "This isn't good. I'm gonna do a different way. I'm gonna change my ways." So oftentimes that happens. Oftentimes we replay something from our prior life, and it's not karma. This is not really karma. This is just learning and choosing better. Remember, folks, that all it takes is choosing love over fear, right? Choosing compassion over judgment. Like this is not karma. This is not he's got debts to pay. This is, oh, I'm going to do better. Okay, I understand. That's it. But we have this idea that it's karma. It's not karma. We just end up in the same kind of situation. We play it out for a little while, and either we stay with it because we're choosing not to do better, to learn better, to grow better, to choose better, right? And everybody thinks that's a lesson. It's not a lesson. It's things come back into play. That's it. It's not a lesson because you already have all the lessons. You already know what you're supposed to be doing. But we tend to deny them within our forgetfulness that we already know right from wrong, right? Here, okay, so here's an example from mine. Um, I've had well, I shouldn't say many, but I've had multiple lives that drinking and drugging was a very big issue with me, right? And in some of these lives, um, I died very young, like, I mean, early 20s, right? And all those contracts within those lives ended up being involved in my life of this life, right? You know, I started partying with those people too. They're doing the same scenarios, right? It's called insanity until we choose better. Well, I knew this, by the way. I knew I had past lives that I had issues within that, right? And I also knew that I died young in many of those lives, right? One from an overdose. So, but yet I'm still doing it because we're running out the same kind of energy. This is why I do quantum timeline cleanses because it's just the energy that continues forth. Our lives are like in a spiral. It's just a continuous story, right? Just a continuous story. So villains might come back, heroes might come back. It's just a continuous story. Themes, ongoing themes within the stories, the stories within a story, right? These are actually just English terms, story within a story. That's what we're doing, right? I can see the full scope of all of your stories in one big volume, right? But we experience it in just that chapter. What you're living right now is just a chapter of an ongoing huge volume of all of your lives. So it's this ongoing spiral of energy that just keeps going. It's connected and it just keeps going. Karma is, if we want to talk about karma, which is not really lessons based, you already know your lessons, right? You already know right from wrong, love over fear. You already do know that. You came here and you were created knowing it. What it is that energy from the past lives, well, it keeps funneling through as well. It keeps funneling through unless something stops it. Unless something stops energy, it will just keep moving. We know this. Physics teaches us that. Energy will just keep going unless something stops it. It might slow down, it might speed up. Something would have to stop that energy from moving, right? So that's all it really is your energy of past lives. It could be of significant moments, it could be of great things, negative things, all sorts of things. Just keeps rolling. The tape just keeps rolling with that theme, that energy. So take me for example. I've had a few lives. I had drinking and drugging issues, right? I also had many lives of being a very dominant, not so good person. Okay. Many different lives with different scenarios. I've also dealt with great tragedy. In many of my lives, I also died young, as many of us did because of the times or whatever the circumstances. There's only been a few that I like lived into my older years. Same with a whole lot of my family as well, right? So there's themes within the individual's spiral timeline of lives, but then also those that are connected in their soul contracts. So, this theme of like drinking and drugging, and then I meet all the people that I've been with in past lives doing it, and I know, oh shit, we've done this before. This might not end well. This really might not end well. We died together before, like even though I knew it, the energy kept going. The energy kept going, and I know I'm living in that energy. It's still I'm living in it, I'm experiencing it. There's all of the current now emotions, experiences, relationships, everything attached to it of this life that I'm also absorbing. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. Okay. Even if you have the inkling of like, man, I've done this before, which I knew I did it before, I wasn't really stopping it because that was the part that I didn't understand. That was the part when I was young I didn't understand. I kind of went into this whole acceptance mode of like, well, shit, I guess I'm going to die young again. What? I did not understand that I have the control of choice. I did not know that I had choice like that because when I was raised to understand reincarnation, karma, all of that jazz, it was as if, well, I wrote all this stuff out before I got here, and so therefore I have no choice. Well, what happens then if you know, well, shit, when I get with all these other people from my past life, and I seem to do that quite often, I'm going to probably die, but I guess it's written in the stars when I chose this. So I guess am I choosing to die again? It gets very confusing for people, right? It gets very confusing to people. What it is in our timelines, we have all of the power and choice and capability of going, you know what? Nope. Stop, energy. You ain't flowing no more. I'm good. I'm going to completely change what I'm going to do moving forward in my timeline. And that prior energy is stopped. It will not affect me. The power of choice and a human free will is cosmically one of the most greatest powers ever, ever. And it's based on stuff like that. Okay, I just keep doing this. I just seem to keep doing this in life after life. There's these themes that run through life after life, themes of abuse, themes of depression, drug addiction, themes of um, horrific things, just sadness, right? Not saying that it's not also connected to our soul contracts, right? But that doesn't mean that the theme is not present. There's many people that, let's say, their ex relationship was damaging in so many ways, right? Mental, emotional, physical, even all sorts of damaging. But when you got with that person, it was, whoa, this is a soul contract. I know it. This is a it probably was. And you probably did the exact same thing before 2 or 3 times. So then that energy is just recycling again, reincarnating again, It is up to us then to go, nope, stop. From this day forward, I do not live with that energy, right? For this day forward, I choose differently. With this day forward, I don't even talk to that person ever again. And then I do all these things like cutting cords and whatnot. It is sincerely just a choice, just a choice. But we tend to not give ourselves the amount of power our free will is. We feel as if there's not a choice to it. So I'm going off on a very long tangent there. A, because I'm a little bit tired, but because when we start talking about these things, as in like Edgar only took 1 year of his current life that he was living as Edgar Cayce to recognize that, oh shit, this energy is not for me. This is not for me. This is not the life I want to live. Now, was it probably influenced by other positive, good energy coming in from other past lives? Yes. All of this energy flows with itself through your lives. You can have multiple themes through multiple stories that you are living in one. But it's up to us to say, you know what? I'm done. He was attracted to what a man's man is, not so much based on his father, but because of the life he lived just prior to coming back, reincarnating as Edgar Cayce. The influence of that energy was present. That's why Edgar talks about influence constantly. But he took only a year and knew, I ain't doing that. And y'all, thank goodness that I learned eventually that I had the choice, I had the right to not continue with the energy that was present, right? I might have shifted into other energy that was present, that was influenced from other past lives, as we do. This is not karma, this is energy. Um, and there's no lessons to really learn other than make a choice. Just make a choice. Are you in fear or are you in love? It's really that simple. Um, but thank God I did, right? I've lost a lot. There's been a lot of people that have died around me, right? Because of drinking, drugging, and whatnot. I would have probably been right there with them. So, and just played out the exact same thing over and over again. Just because energy is presented in one's life does not mean that we have to choose to live through it. It's a ridiculous notion. Based on because we chose this before we got here, that's a ridiculous notion. And if anything, that's there to help you understand how mighty and powerful your free will really is. So, the past life of Edgar, born in 1742, British soldier, ends up actually going to Canada, okay? And he got involved with the hostile Indian tribes. Oh, okay, so he actually got kinda, like, kidnapped in a way? Or, mm, so what people might not know about our history, some do, some don't. Um, British soldier messing with a bunch of ships, wrecking them, you know, stealing, smuggling. British, British soldier goes to Canada. Well, what I'm reading here, folks, is that then from Canada, he gets mixed in with the natives, probably starts kind of working with them, and then also migrates with them. Because remember, do know he was an Irishman. He was an Irishman. And what some people don't know about North America is that the Irish and the natives ended up working a lot together. So did some of the French, especially in the Canada regions when things were shifting. Um, the Irish, though, worked a lot alongside with the natives. The natives talk about it to this day. So he was kind of working with the natives in Canada, but then they all ended up going towards Chicago. The Fort Dearborn, which was present day Chicago. So they went to Fort Dearborn, which for nobody that's been to Chicago, we have a whole lot of Dearborn stuff there. We have whole highways and roads called Dearborn. So when Fort Dearborn finally fell, I'm going to read this a bit. When Fort Dearborn finally fell to the Indians, he aided a large group of men, women, and children to escape down to the Ohio River on a clumsily uh, accessible raft. He had insufficient supplies to sustain them and were unable to go ashore to forage. The Indians having persuade them along both banks of the Ohio. So Fort Dearborn was taken over. There's so much rich history from what was going on with the French Canadians and the natives, especially all around the Great Lakes. I don't know the actual history of Fort Dearborn. I don't. What I do know is that, like, I'm from that area, Waukegan, Illinois. It was a fort as well, and that is where the French and the natives would trade a lot. Waukegan is a native word. Um, Same with all of the Chicagoland area. So when we're thinking about this long ago, there were different forts, different trading posts all across the Great Lakes. So we're saying, because here's the thing, in this story, in this writing, I wanted to point out, they don't go through all the history of what's going on. They're just giving us some bullet points as to what was going on in the past life that Edgar lived prior to being Edgar of that we know. So everybody was escaping down the Ohio River. One by one, the unfortunates died of exposure and starvation. But I guess the guy that he was living as ended in an act of heroism. He died enabling a young woman to escape to safety. Oh my gosh. So at the very end of this long, probably crazy life, started out rough, as most of us do, then worked alongside with the natives, then having to escape with the natives, going down the Ohio River, then at the very end, when people are dying from all of the different circumstances, he died by saving a woman who could escape to safety. That's wonderful. Apart from this, his soul had made no great spiritual progress in that life, and that would merit no further commitment, save for two singular links with his present life. The woman whose life he saved sought his help again in this life, and through her, he was able to aid many of the souls he had known from Fort Dearborn. For as a group, they had remained intact, bringing their unfinished problems with them to be solved in the various uh, cat. They ended up in a peninsula, the Cascapee Peninsula. I guess there's going to be more about that, folks, in chapter 16. So everything I just said at the beginning of how souls stay connected. They tend to move with each other. We literally just read. So, Edgar, in his life, one of the woman whose life he saved, sought his help again in this life. So she eventually reincarnated, learned who this Edgar Cayce was. He's doing a reading for her. And in the reading, it's like, oh my goodness, you're the woman this entity, Edgar, saved. Y'all should talk. Let's give you this backstory here of all that happened. Well, then that woman had been reincarnated with the population of people that ended up going down the Ohio River into a peninsula, living together, life after life after life. And Edgar, after finding this out, then helped a bunch of those people that he originally was with escaping the fall of Fort Dearborn. I literally just explained how all this happens. And I didn't even know I was going to say that, to tell you the truth. I did not know I was going to say that. So I do know what I'm talking about, folks. I need some case studies. Find me 15 people and 6 groups of 15. I need that because I do know what I'm talking about. A minor but much more disarming fragment of evidence was forthcoming when Casey's family first moved to Virginia Beach in September 1925. Edgar had accomplished sorry. Edgar had accompanied his son Hugh to a barber shop where the barber's son, a sleepy 5-year-old, was was awaiting his mother's return to put him to bed. Sorry. This father had given him a box of animal crackers to keep him, pacified. Then, when his drowsy gaze suddenly focused on Edgar, he trotted over to the man and handed him the box. Here, he said, you can have the rest. You must still be awfully hungry. Leave the gentleman alone. You know better than to pester folks you don't know, his father said to the child. But I do know him, protested the child, gazing up at Edgar with complete confidence. So this is a 5-year-old at a random barber shop in Virginia Beach. He was on the raft too. And you were really hungry then, weren't you, mister? The raft that they makeshift together real quick to try to get down the Ohio River. Thank you, young man, said Edgar gratefully. I'll take just one cookie, and then added a little confidential whisper to the boy. And you're right, I was real hungry on that raft. Connections, folks. Connections. 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 The Chesapeake Peninsula is where all those people ended up kind of going. He then is in Virginia Beach with his own son, Hugh, goes into a barber shop. A little 5-year-old boy goes, oh my goodness, you gotta be starving because you were starving on that raft. That little boy don't know no different. Connections, connections, connections. Connections, connections, connections. Everyone is connected. I Everyone is. And it is not, it was never a coincidence to me, the great migration during the 2020, during the COVID. It was not a coincidence to me. It was not, really COVID based for me. That had nothing to do with nothing. COVID does or does not, right? What I knew what was going on, and I've talked about it here before, the mighty shift of the grand awakening, what this land is going to need, what this world is going to need, what our souls are being called to do in action and in peace and harmony required large amounts of people to relocate. It really did. Soul contracts knowing, oh man, I haven't seen you in 5 lifetimes. This is the one. We got to come together. This is the one on a mass scale. So we saw it as like individual households, individual people relocating to different locations all over the states, all over the place, right? We witnessed that. And it was all in this understanding of the economics and city life and COVID and all this jazz. I knew that through all of that, it would have been happening anyways. It would have been happening anyways because so many soul contracts have to come back together in order to sustain what is going to be mighty shifts and sustain it in love, peace, and harmony, feeling secure and safe, feeling like your soul is living its authentic self, as in the way that soul wants to identify through this lifetime. And that's another thing as well. Y'all are getting a lot about reincarnation just because I'm tired. Um, that's another thing as well. All of you have lived so many lives, so many lives. There's going to be many lives. I don't even know how to put this. You have lived hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lives. Okay? You've lived hundreds of lives. Then there's going to be multiple lives that heavily influence this current life, that heavily influence. So, are all the lives a part of you? Is all that awareness attainable for you? Yes, just remember who you are. Is all of that possible? Yes. But there's going to be a few multiple, and for everyone it's different, so I can't give exact numbers. It could be 3 for some, 3 or 5 for some, and it could be 17 to 90 for someone else. You see what I'm saying? I can't give an actual number. But there's going to be multiple lives that heavily influence your current life, right? So I spoke about, my drinking and drugging. I had multiple lives of that energy passing through that I was going to heavily influence this life. But then I've had lives great long ago, great long ago, that things happen, good and bad, whatever. It was a life that has no influence on really what's going on now because that energy has kind of worked itself out, right? Because we know energy will probably slow down, dissipate, right? It'll slow down to maybe a little bit influencing until it probably just kind of disappears. So a life that you lived 236 years ago, whatever happened there, unless it was something immensely energetic, it's not probably really going to influence what's going on right now. Can you remember it? Yes. But as far as influence energetically wise, the energy's already worked itself out. The only other thing that could happen there is like, let's say you have that life and there's a theme there. There's some kind of energy that did happen, right? You were held captive for the last 5 years of your life, which usually draws very negative energy. Let's say that 236 years ago, you were held captive for the last 5 years of your life. You died in that cell. That energy kept going, right? That energy that's negative kept going, along with good energy that happened, right? That energy kept going. Now, it will dissipate, it will slow down, it will kind of just work itself out as energy does, unless another big tragic thing attaches itself to that energy. So then, let's say, you know, 16 years from that life, you're now held prisoner, but you're tortured horribly as well, right? So, ongoing theme, you were a prisoner. You died in a cell, in a dungeon, right? Because it had been 236 years ago, in a dungeon. Well, that energy was still present. It was still rolling through, still going through the timelines, right? It was still going through, and it was kind of starting to dissipate, slow down because other things in life, other action takes place, other energy is presented. But then, oh, you did something that was probably associated with another form of energy, another theme that's in place, but in this world now, 16, hell, even 160 years later, um, they don't allow that kind of action anymore. So now you're not just held captive, you're tortured. Well, that's now a very significant energy marker stamp on your timeline that now that energy starts moving forward. That energy starts moving forward and things attach, or it dissipates, or things attach, right? That create it to keep propelling forward. These are not lessons. These are not lessons to learn. What lesson is there to learn about being imprisoned? Patience? You already got it. You already have everything you need. You already have everything you need. This is only energy. If you need to do anything, learn physics. At least the minute amount of physics that we understand in today's world, study that, right? Understand energy. This is not lessons to learn. You haven't done anything wrong. You haven't done anything wrong. You don't need to learn anything. You definitely are not saying when you leave this place, oh man, I didn't do that well enough. Let's do it again. Because if you leave this place and you are all knowing there must be a different reason why we choose to come back opposed to lessons. I'm dead and I'm doing a life review apparently, and I go, "Oh man, I messed up there. I messed up there. I messed up there. Let me do this all again." And I guess I'll take that soul contract, that soul contract. We're going to come together. We're going to do this again so I can do it differently, so I can make a better choice. That's what I'm gonna do because I'm actually in this current state reviewing life, I am all-knowing. I do see that Courtney outside of, this body of form is actually all-knowing, all divine, all completely centered, balanced, perfect, right? That is who's reviewing my life. But yet that same being says, "And now Courtney's gotta come back because she messed up to do something I already know how to do." It doesn't make any sense. What does make sense, though, folks, is people not stopping energy, people not understanding that energy will keep going until something stops it. And all of this is energy. Your words, your actions, every little bit of life. You are exuding energy, you're living energy, you're taking energy in. It is all energy. It's not lessons to learn because you already know everything. You already know everything. Even when it comes to choices, you already know the right choice to make every single time. Do we do so? Probably not, because we live in forgetfulness and we think our human free will is not as great as it is. That's not the case. We're not here to learn. We're here to do. Big difference. We all came to do, but we get in this trap of the fog. We get in this trap of forgetfulness that helps us to forget that we're here to do. And they put this big thing of we're here to experience and learn these lessons and fix your karma, which the only way to do that, if you so want to think that that is how this all works, I don't care. Because the only way to then to fix your karma anyways, guess what? It's by doing. It's the same. You have to do the same thing. You have to make choices. You have to do the action. You have to live in love instead of fear. You have to live in compassion instead of judgment. All of that is what we're supposed to be doing to get over this concept of karma, to release ourselves from this ideas of karma or lessons, or we have to learn stuff. If you want to stay in that quote unquote theory, that's fine. I don't care, because the exact same thing to release you from what that theory says you need to release from is the exact same thing that has to do to stop the energy from flowing. You have to do differently. You have to do. You have to either stop the energy, choose differently, and move forth differently, but you have to do. And so the point I'm trying to make, A, the amount of connections that are in this world, most people can't even comprehend. We are all connected. Also, it is action. It is action. The thoughts that we think that become the things that we do, and we do in joy. It is those aspects of life that determine things, that determine if that theme is going to continue as a collective, as an individual. If that theme is going to continue based on lack of action or choice in action, right? That's the biggest thing to take away from all of this reincarnation stuff. All of it. So, does it matter so much if you know who you were in a past life? No, because if you have situations in this current life that are not pleasant, that you know, this probably isn't really the best for me and others, then we stop. And if you need to seek help to stop, you seek the help. We stop and we start doing differently. That's it. That's it. That will clear away this quote unquote karma. That will say to the world and yourself that, oh, I must have learned my lesson. Lesson is such a human concept, a 3D density thought of lessons. It's so 3D. I cannot stress that more. When you are a limitless, beautiful star being that already knows everything, right? It is such a 3D density theory that it's hard for me to wrap my head around because it is of self-judgment and judgment of others. That's all that is. Karma is just judgment. And you beautiful beings, you actually come from consciousness, most likely from when you were created to now, that is outside of judgment. But then when we get here, we forget that. And then we spend our life continuously trying to learn lessons based on judgment. So, do enjoy, folks. We stopped energy, all themes that are individual and collective, all themes that have played out over and over and over and over and over again. can be stopped. It's only energy. That's all it is. It's just energy. And our human free will is magnificent and expansive and limitless and very much one of the most powerful things in the whole cosmos. Not even the universe, people. I'm beyond universe. Universe is attached to 3D. Universe is attached to us here. I'm talking about cosmic level, outside of anyone's understanding, other galaxies. The human free will is one of the most powerful things ever. And yet we don't do enjoy. We don't even use it. So I love you all. That was my soapbox 'cause I am tired because I am using I'm using my free will. I am using my free will and it's gonna tire me out, but that's all good because I know I'm limitless. I know I am. I trust it all. So I love you all. That was a little bit about reincarnation based on the book and a whole lot of me rambling, but I do know what I'm talking about. I really do. I know that I do. So I love you all. Lori, thanks for coming. Shelly, thanks for coming. Kim, thank you for coming. Anyone listening, please leave a comment below. It does help me out. I am nearing and getting close to the 50 subscribers that I need to get to 500. I appreciate you all. Consider subscribing. Definitely hit that thumbs up for me. I love y'all. Cheers. I'll see you Friday morning for the last round of Michael Mass. And you guys are great. You guys, man, you guys are amazing. You're amazing. So keep shining, stars. Love you guys. Bye.